Call to order the regularly scheduled board meeting of USD 464 for Monday, July 12th. Everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next item is to approve the agenda. I do need to amend and add an action item 5.8. It has to do with the Symmetry gas bill. There's Lori got some information. It appears that there may be a possible settlement. We can kind of discuss that later in action items, but if we can approve them not to pay that bill when it comes due, hopefully it can get less than what is out there. But anyway, so action item 5.8. Yes, I would move to amend the agenda and add action item 5.8 regarding this Symmetry settlement. Is there a second on that?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. It's here. Passed. We'll just now move that we approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, I guess I need to
I have a question on that. We had an action item, I thought, for approval of the fees.
That's in the
Meal prices?
I think that got added in there today or something.
The fee prices,
I didn't see that in
it
the,
was updated, wasn't
The
it?
fee schedule's in there. I don't know about the meal prices.
yeah, I didn't
Yes.
see the meal prices.
The only one that should have been adjusted would have been the adult meals.
I don't
meals.
think they got attached.
Do we have to approve, Audra, does that have to be approved at this meeting? The meal prices?
Right, and that's where I'm not aware that we got them. I can try and text her.
That was the only adjustment.
Yeah, because last year the fees included the meal prices, but this year the fees did not include
The
the meal
meals
prices.
are free this year from the federal government. Extra entrees will be a charge, but the
Okay.
only
Yeah.
change to the meal fees would be an adult price. And I don't know if Barb had that from the
Yeah.
federal government.
I don't know if it's 5 or 10 cents.
Okay,
It's so that's just to the staff. The adult price is just as staff and
Yes. So we removed all meal prices from the fee schedule itself, so they would be separate.
But we don't have anything to approve today.
Not on 2.17.
Okay.
so I mean that would basically proves nothing there. I mean, it's on the consent agenda as blank.
My question is, do we need to adjust the adult price tonight? I know, are you?
I texted Barb.
Barb, okay.
Well,
So all the meals are free this coming school year as well?
well, I mean, you want to pull that from the consent agenda?
Yeah,
Was it 2.7, the meals?
2.17. 2.17.
Okay, so there's a move to amend the agenda further and pull 2.17 from the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay. Now that we've got the agenda all modified a couple times here, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the changes.
I seconded.
Sharon seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. All in favor. Okay, election of officers. I think since Justin's not here, he probably inherits that role. That's whenever
I'm here. I'm clear.
Anyway, I mean, it's up to the group. I'm not here campaigning. I'll serve another few months or whatever it takes, or if someone wants to make a motion on the officers, the floor is open.
I make a motion to keep, or do you have to do those separately?
I mean, there's two, I mean, you could do it all in one motion as far as I'm concerned.
I make a motion to, I guess, re-elect Jim Bothwell as president and Chris Grattan as vice president.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? All right, Motion carried. You got lucky, Justin.
I voted yea, by the way.
We're just kind of moving through with that, I guess. Action, okay, 1.5, Lori, budget closeout review. You're on deck. Your final,
I'll probably do that.
all right,
for
yeah,
sure.
we're not letting you go that
It's
easy.
budget
yeah.
time, so. I'm here to discuss 3 different items tonight. The first is what was on the agenda, for the closeout transfers, and that should have been attached to the agenda. So that's just an outline of everything we transferred. Our general fund, as you all know, has to be zeroed out at the end of the year. These are the funds that were transferred to each of the other funds. We were able to keep the ending cash balances equal to the beginning cash balances, and that's pretty much our goal. So we didn't add funds, we didn't subtract, we just kept them the same. With the exception of at-risk, we had a little over $50,000 that we were able to put towards at-risk, which my strategy is that'll give us a little breathing room with our pay increases for next year. So I think it came out as close as I would like to see it.
Was that with?
I don't think it got attached.
Was that with the?
It's on.
Is that the bills or something, or the treasurer's
It
report?
is on end of year transfers 2.13. That's where it was
There you
attached.
go.
Sorry.
Very good. Yep.
Should have given you all time to look at it while I was chatting. I'll have to give you a chance to find that and let me know if you have any questions.
That closed out both, just the general and the LOB, right?
Yes, yeah. LOB, we were able to, we don't have to.
Guess you use it first, so
What's that?
do you use it up first or whatever? or-
Yeah, we don't have to zero out LOB.
Oh, okay.
We have to zero out the general fund, so. Does anybody have any questions about the end of year transfers?
I think the important overall view is we were able to start next year at equal or slightly higher funds than the previous year, and the 2 main funds were special ed and at-risk. But otherwise, you know, that's good. I mean, means we were on target is what we're
Yeah,
trying to say.
yeah, special ed actually ended up a little lower than it started, not much.
Right.
It's pretty equal. At-risk is the only one we bumped up a
And
little bit.
it
just
was
to give us
suggested
more
already
salaries.
that, I'm sorry, but it was already suggested that we put more funds into special ed going into next year because of increased cost and services.
So is that sufficient, Lauren?
We think it is. We're gonna go
Feel
over
good
it.
about it.
When we build the budget, we'll go over that again.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what Pam Chenoweth suggested from high school.
Okay, if there aren't questions about that, I'll move on to the Symmetry, which is what was added to your action items. I got an email today from KASB saying that they're anticipating a settlement, probably within the next 14 days. And I will back up if I need to, because it's maybe been a while since I've talked about this, so stop me if you need me to. But it's the gas bill from February that their per unit cost was way over what it should have been during that time. So that's why KSB is helping multiple schools kind of fight that. So they think we'll have a settlement offer in the next 14 days. They said once we get that, we're gonna have to move quickly to accept it and pay it, whatever that is. We just don't know what it is. So instead of doing a special board meeting at that time, I thought we could possibly just get your approval for the full amount. I mean, it won't be that. It'll be less than that, but since I don't know what the settlement is, I thought that might help avoid a special meeting. So if you have any questions about that, I know you're taking action later, but I'm here to answer any questions. That amount, the full amount that's being disputed is $45,628.
Then
So basically, we were advised to pay the maximum rate allowed. So we did pay that bill, but this is what was above and beyond the maximum rate allowed
And for what duration is this?
for February.
February, okay.
And then we reserved this, again, we didn't take this out, I mean, it's not out of our last year's budget or anything, it's in
No.
contingent, or you,
KSDE recommended at the budget workshop that, because they know what's going on with a lot of schools, that we go ahead and encumber it out of our contingency fund for this next budget year, in case we have to pay it. And again, I don't know. I have to guess it's gonna be somewhere in the middle of zero at the full amount, but it's hard to say.
but, I mean, then we would look at next year, I mean, because we haven't really ever touched contingency or done anything, so then once we know that amount, we can look to rebuild contingency in the future.
Correct.
Because the contingency funds are it's like 450 or.
Yeah, I think it's 450.
It's under 500.
457, I have it here. $457,095.46. That's just stayed at that amount for ever through this whole budget.
I mean, the action items later, I don't know if anybody has any other questions for Lori on that bill, and kind of the intent there is really more to give them the authority so that we don't have to call a last minute meeting to approve the exact amount.
Yeah, I would say whatever they end up settling on is what we need to do.
I'll keep the board informed with the settlement is.
Okay, last but not least, I don't know how many of you have heard about revenue neutral rate. This is Senate Bill 13 that just passed, and it's going to affect this next year's budget. It's not going to affect the budget, I'm sorry, the process of the budget. So, we try to keep mill levies, steady, but valuations go up. And so the Senate bill that was passed is saying that because your mill levy multiplied by the valuations equals a certain dollar amount, if we were to try to raise the same dollar amount we did last year, that mill rate would probably have to come down because valuations went up. So, this originally was not made for school districts because we're a little bit different, but somebody slid it in at the last minute. So now, so cities, I'm trying to think who else. I don't know. It's mostly cities, but then they slid in school districts too.
Local government.
So, yeah, so if our,
Counties.
so the county sends out our valuations, and along with that this year was our revenue neutral rate, which is the mill levy that we would have, that we would set in order to raise the same amount of funds that we did last year. The problem with that is for our general fund, we legally have to raise 20 mils. Well, our revenue neutral rate for our general fund would be 18.351. So we are going to exceed that. We have to exceed that because we have to raise 20 mils. Because we're going to exceed that, there's just going to be another resolution for you all to approve along with the budget, when you approve the budget, saying that we are going to exceed the revenue neutral
That's my
rate.
only copy, but yeah, sure.
And I'm currently working with Greenbush on that right now.
Well, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna work with Greenbush, and then we'll send out a letter to everybody and put it, this is, actually information from another school district, but it's a good explanation of what exactly is going on. But we just need to get our numbers included in the graphs so that we have a better idea.
Yeah,
What we're
I'm
doing.
not able to report. We have to, let the county treasurer know by July 20th how much we're going to exceed that revenue neutral rate at. And so Greenbush and I are working on that, so we'll have that ready to report to the county treasurer. You all will not have to approve it until you approve the budget, which because of all this is gonna be a little later this year. So normally you approve the budget at the August, board meeting, and this year it's gonna be at the September board meeting.
Right.
Because
So if we're disclosing something to the county and we vary from that, I don't, wow. I mean,
It's
I guess I
very
haven't read
cut-
enough information about it.
So we have have time, and I can absolutely, gather more information for you guys and get you, but yeah, so basically, we're just telling the county we are going to exceed this revenue neutral rate, because we have to. We can't just have our general fund at 18.3 mils. We have to raise 20 mils for the general fund.
And that's required by
Law.
law. What about the other?
So it's yet to be seen on the other funds whether we will have to increase that or not. That's what we're working on.
Okay.
So the others, we may not have to.
I mean, it's just a disclosure, so people know more what their tax
The county has
impact
to
is.
send a letter out to every taxpayer letting them know. And this year, that's going to be the cost of the county.
Next year.
Next year, we'll start incurring that cost of those mailings. Yeah, and it's just something that it's confusing, but we'll work through it. And, yeah, so if you have any questions at all, I can gather some information, send it out. I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up and let you know about it today.
That's an example of what Bonner's doing.
Yeah.
So I think that might be just what they gave to their board.
That's what they're gonna give to the board,
Yeah.
but we need to update ours and use our information.
Yeah.
Wasn't last year there was something similar to it, but it was a percentage increase on general revenue that if you went over a certain 1.8 or something?
So that was not new, but yes, if you, I believe if it increased over, it's called the second notice.
Yeah.
It's a second notice that we have to publish, and I know we've done that since I've been here. If the
Evaluate.
dollar amount goes up by more than, I believe it's 3%, the dollar amount that you're raising.
Okay.
Which again is affected by valuations,
Right.
because our valuations have been going up, which is good, but,
Well,
it depends, yeah,
This is
it's
your
good for the
valuation.
school.
personal evaluation.
Good for the school district, but, so, yes, there's lots of, we just have to keep everybody informed. But this is all brand new, and so I'm happy to have Greenbush helping me through it, and, yeah, I'll gather whatever you guys would like in the meantime. But that'll be coming along with the budget approvals September meeting. So we have to let the county know how much we will exceed it by, but we can then do less if we want to. We just can't go over that. Any questions tonight about that? I'm sorry.
It's all new, so.
It's hard to explain. For me.
For everybody.
So that letter that's gonna go to the county, is that gonna include the general as well as all of the
It
other?
will be for each fund, yeah.
Okay.
I used the general as an example because I know, that's how I know that we will be exceeding it and we will have to go through these motions.
Okay.
Now, I suppose if the school district have valuations go down, they may not exceed that revenue neutral rate. And they would just do the same thing they've always done. They wouldn't have to go through.
Right.
That's
The
gonna be
rec
very-
department has to do this,
Yeah,
city.
yeah. Anyone raising tax dollars, possibly. Okay, if no more questions, that's all for me. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lauren.
All right, Aaron.
You can keep it.
My computer just died, so if you bear with me a second. Plug it in there. All right. All right, high school project update. Let's start with a little budget update. I know we've talked a little bit at the previous meetings, but everything is still tracking in really good shape in terms of the overall bond budget and the contingencies. did, if you look at the information that was sent in your packet, I did find a typo in the facility improvement allowance forecast. It had a different number, but it should have been forecasted the same as the current, so. Overall, in forecasting is some additional use of the district GMP contingency. There's a couple small, is that mine? There's a couple small things that are hanging out there that we're working through with the McCown Gordon team on some design conflicts and changes. So that is what's reflecting there in that forecast. In terms of substantial completion dates, no new updates, still tracking towards the Learning Center substantial completion by the end of November, which will kick off the FF&E and move processes over the December and winter break timeframes. Whether
Will commissioning add any time to that, is that? I don't-
No, commissioning will be ongoing during the closeout, and, we'll continue through the move-in and FF&E process. On weather days, added in information for the weather days used in June. There were 4 in the contract and 3 actually used, so net positive. There currently have been a total of 6 weather days in excess of the contract, but it has not actually impacted their overall timeline, so there's really no concern with that at this point. They've been able to make up for that in other ways. So jumping over to key deliverables and inspections, and the first floor in-wall inspection was completed last week to allow drywall to begin on the first floor of building F. So that space will start taking shape really quickly, be able to really see the rooms and the shape and size of the rooms. And then I've added on here, we did get the order for all the appliances in, and that has been something really working towards, knowing that those have had some real lead time issues. And currently they're telling us an August 31st delivery date, and we will stay on top of that because that seems quite advantageous. So we'll be tracking that one real closely, but hopefully we've given enough time to get all that here. If those do come in on August 31st, we will have to find some place within the building to have them stored until they can be installed in the various locations. Other key milestone dates, just have on here the Learning Center building dry-in was completed last week, so that, kind of the final dry-in of the roof. They've been continuing to do some point water testing of the exterior walls and window systems, and that's been going along well. Been a few small issues that they've corrected, and we have reports from all those. The north parking lot asphalt, I did not drive by there today, but it's supposed to go down today. I know there was some weather over the weekend. And then the north and southwest parking lots will be complete and turned back over and open before school starts on or about August 13th. So other upcoming things, state health department inspection in the kitchen. I started to talk to Barb and her team about that. And the TCO inspection for the Learning Center, all the Learning Center buildings will be November 5th. With FF&E starting the 1st of December and moving as soon as school is out, December 20th. So then we'll have the new gym building to look forward to and the demo. We'll talk about move management a little bit later, but kind of starting to have those conversations about how to move out of the existing building and decommissioning everything within there. So safety is still, the county board is still doing a real great job out there with safety, and have no issues thus far. jumping into other issues, risks and changes. So just a little update on the ongoing summer work. As I mentioned, the north and southwest parking lots are continue to be torn up and repaved. It will be complete by the end of the summer. The east campus interior hallways, the new ceilings are underway. Got the ceiling tile going in later this week. And they've completed the work that they had planned to do on the west campus fire sprinkler. And do the whole thing, just the tie-ins that they had planned, so that has been completed. So early procurement of materials and increasing costs. The town boards continue to do a really good job of staying on top of their subs and ordering materials early, and have avoided any claims or issues with procurement times and cost increases. They are beginning, as we spoke about previous months, they are beginning 3D coordination and have already begun some material procurement for the gym addition, so they can continue to stay ahead of all that. The furniture acceptance agreement, so this I believe is an action item later on, and I'll just kind of go through what the request here is. So starting back in really last summer, getting Scott Rice on board as the furniture vendor for this project, and have worked through with them, having a test drive classroom, checking out some of the furniture, going on tours to different schools around the area to see their furniture. And then in March of this year, we started having bi-weekly meetings with Scott Rice and the administration and as needed individual teachers to provide input on what their furniture needs were in each space of the new learning center. So that all resulted in final furniture design and a finished meeting that was held here a few weeks ago that included a couple board members for their input, as well as some additional administration staff. Scott Rice has put together a full, what they call acceptance agreement. If you want to see it, I have it. It is 70 pages long, so I did not include the whole agreement, but it goes through, we'll go through as a team and double check every single piece of furniture and the counts in each room. Is really what that does to create the full order. This included in the board packet was the general layout, showing furniture in all the spaces, including the cafeteria. And then I threw in a couple pages just for information showing kind of what the typical classroom desks look like, some of the specialty desks. These butcher blocks are in the art classrooms. The standard chairs, and then some of the ancillary classroom chairs that have the integral arms. The standard teacher's desks in each of the rooms that were reviewed with all the teachers that got involved in the furniture meetings, as well as the teacher chairs and task chairs. And then I just threw in, there's several areas of different lounge seating, and a couple of photos, images here of a couple of the different fabrics that were chosen to coordinate with the building finishes, really keeping simple within the Tongi reds and more of the neutral grays, grays and whites.
Tony Reds.
Tongi red. Red.
Only one red.
Only one red, yes.
Right one.
And it's red and it's not maroon, right, Kaya?
Correct.
So all that said, Scott Rice has been really working on kind of some final tweaks to little parts and pieces, accessories within the furniture selected, and negotiating with their vendors on pricing. So because they got to that final number, kind of similar to what Lori was saying, to avoid a special board meeting later this month, they gave us a not to exceed value of 1.3 million for all the furniture. They hope to have the final agreement done by the end of this week, that the district could then sign to allow the furniture order. There's a pretty substantial price increase coming at the beginning of August, and we're also getting just a little bit tight on lead times, so we didn't want to wait until the August board meeting to bring this. So the action item is to authorize approval of that agreement and that order, as long as it does not exceed that 1.3. And I talked to them this morning, and it's really looking like it's closer to 1.2 or 1.22. The original budget was 1.2 with some contingency.
And
in
now is that for all furniture for the entire project, or is that?
This is just the learning center. So this is D, E, and F, cafeteria, administration, and the two-story building. So then, after we get this all approved and out the door, we'll start designing the West Campus and gym, which is very minimal. So, yeah, the budget for the learning center was 1.2. So if it comes in slightly over that, it would be using some of that $420,000 soft cost contingency.
Who has to sign that? Is that Lauren or is that?
It's Lauren if you give him that authorization.
Because you said that's gonna come here. I mean, I know I've got some vacation at the end of July, so I don't wanna be.
It's next week, probably.
Okay, I'll be around next week.
Hopefully it should be this week, sitting down with them on Wednesday to go through, line item by line item, make sure that it's all accounted for and that's on stuff.
Definitely, I have given the blessing on patterns and colors.
Yeah. It's gonna be the best looking high school you've ever walked in.
There's no Chihuahua wallpaper.
Perfect.
No,
Okay.
no misspelled words on anything.
I hope not. We didn't have anything with words,
Okay.
right?
No worries.
Lesson learned.
Okay, so, like I said, that's an action item later on. Are there any other questions on that for me? Okay.
I appreciate the information you sent out afterwards, and I sent that on, anything that helps outline a pretty extensive process that's went through to get us to this point, so.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of great input. And hopefully it's a flexible design, that allows change, but gets people what they need to teach their individual areas. All right, so building commissioning, Henderson, the commissioning agent, has been engaged. They attended an OAC meeting last week to get familiar with the project and begun coordinating dates for pre-functional testing and setting up the team communication process. So we'll start seeing some reports on that here over the next month or so. Move management, so this is another action item on the agenda tonight. So a few months ago, engaged a move management consultant to help go through and develop a scope of work for the move. They have done that and put together, put out a bid, received 3 quotes on move services from 3 different move companies: Fry Wagner's, Carrier, and Daniels Moving and Storage. So I sent out this summary. Pretty typical in the move industry to have kind of a variation in costs depending on how they look at things. Facility systems, I sat down and went through that with them, and they all had the same scope and really spent a lot of time vetting each one to ensure they all had everything covered. So we're recommending to move forward with Fry Wagner as the lead vendor for all phases of the project. So you can see it's currently broken up into 5 phases with a couple breakout prices. The main one being this upcoming move in December out of the old building and into the new. Are there any questions on that? Okay.
Well, I do have a,
Yeah.
I mean, so that range you saw there, that's not uncommon.
Well, I would throw Daniels out, I don't know what they were doing. But the difference between Fry and Superior.
Yeah, that looks like, I do appreciate Fry Wagner breaking it out.
Yeah, they were the only ones who really went in and broke out that detail between the phases. And, they, I guess I'll add, both Superior and Fry have, extensive experience in school moves.
Yeah.
Fry Wagner has the, Blue Valley School District move contract and, a couple others, so they know what they're doing, they know what it takes. You know, they can walk into a room and say, all right, we need, you know, Xboxes and all that, so.
And they're including, it looked like $1 million with no deductible for insurance.
Yeah, that's right. I know that all. So, yeah, if this is approved, the next step would be to start having some, move coordination meetings and setting dates and expectations and those last coordination details.
Will the move be all inside, or will they be taking stuff outside and across, or how's it?
The hope is to just put it on carts and wheel it down the hallway,
Okay.
up the ramp, up the new ramp, so. Makes it nice use.
So,
It all connects, so they don't have to load the truck and then unload the truck.
well, especially that time of year,
Yeah. A little snowy.
or unpleasant.
Okay, last action item here. Busy couple weeks, I guess, and sent out a email to Jim and the rest of the board regarding this to try and give you a little bit more, information and heads up, but if you recall, back at the time of the GMP, there was an alternate number 2 that, was for repaving, tearing up and repaving the east access road. And then between the time the bid documents went out and the GMP, there were some sidebar conversations about having more parking along that road. So that bid alternate became more of a, bid alternate allowance to get that design finalized. So as DLR was finalizing that design, they brought up that, the original scope did not include extending the street lighting all the way. The original scope, I'm gonna say this the wrong guy.
So what was the original allowance for amount?
Oh, Drew, you always have a question and an answer. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't remember off the top of my head. So the original design before the alternate included replacing the road only to kind of this curvature area. So there was a parking lot light here and a light here. So as all this parking got added into the design, DLR's engineers asked the question, do you want additional parking lighting extended all the way down that road? And the, answer was yes, put it in the PR, let's price it. It's better for safety and visibility, so, this is the price, just for, I should say, just for the lighting and, some additional fiber conduit. That was kind of a unforeseen getting into it. We couldn't reuse the conduit that was there, so it includes some additional length of conduit for the fiber. But the majority of it is the 4 additional pole lights and getting the power all the way out to them. So the reason this is being brought to the board separately tonight is, again, kind of a timing situation. The next board meeting, they are only holding their price on these parking lot lights until the end of July, just because lighting pricing increases are coming fast and furious. So the cost for the electrical portion of that work is $75,000, or $74,520.
How much is the fiber component of it?
It's all in here. We just have to add up separate line items. So this is conduits for the light, this is conduits for the fiber.
Because you said unforeseen conditions, and that sounds like it's something that's construction contingency.
No, it's, unforeseen conditions are excluded from construction contingency. This is the design was to replace, or the design was to pull the fiber through the existing conduit, but because of the location of the existing conduit and the phasing with the demolition of the existing high school, sorry, I got too many documents open here. It was gonna reuse the existing conduit on this side, but, now we're running it along this side and crossing over, so there's just some additional length of conduit there. And I can send you a whole explanation of all that, but, it was a twofold of being concerned about the condition of that existing conduit and could it be pulled through, and being able to time it right, because this conduit had to get all the way back to the existing comm closet, and the timing of when it pulls with where it comes out of now, of the existing building being demoed. It was a whole jostle match. So the conduit's not the big part. It's just in there because it's part of the electrician's
So,
cost.
so what was because when we stopped that, and then I'm just trying to understand the history of it, because it sounds to me like some things were decided upon earlier, but at that point in time, didn't realize the additional scope that would be required, and it's just grown over time. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to nobody asked the question or brought up that parking lot lights should be extended down that road. So that wasn't included in that alternate to, design pricing. So it's, you have them or you don't. I think it was the feeling of the design team and the administration that it would be a good thing to have along that light, or along that road.
Is there any regulatory requirements for lighting?
This was designed with the foot candle layout that's consistent with the rest of the new parking areas. But I would have to ask Laura that question if there is a baseline requirement, without doing it.
Right, because it makes it from a choice of adding light for parking or not doing parking. I mean, if it's
Yeah.
regulatory. Is that parking required? Is that part of the parking that's necessary for the full build out and for the school, or is that required for current, or early near forecast student counts? Or is that convenience parking for the activities?
The latter two, it's more convenience parking. It was not part of the original scope of the project, and it was not considered, with that initial parking count, so. I had this document to share, to talk about the goal later as well, but, pre-construction stall count at the high school is 419. The new construction, including that roadway, is 552. So overall, the project's added 133 stalls. I think there's 77 on that curve.
So that's part of those added?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then for, because we talked about having, in the design phase of it, having enough parking, at least identified, maybe not built now, but identified to accommodate full capacity. When assuming you do the scheduling change, and get full utilization out of all the space.
Right.
So but I just don't know if that parking there is required.
No, I think this was a decision that was made really just to maximize the usability of that space and provide more parking for activities. Is that?
So the parking that's to the west of the west campus that is, was just in the diagram would fulfill that need?
Will it, or you're saying you think it might?
I think it might. I'm guessing.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt, but I don't know if it.
I thought we talked at one point about extending parking beyond this if we needed to at full capacity.
Yes.
We had a conversation about.
Yeah, that's where I
know.
was like, we identified that. I just didn't know if this parking was.
We talked about this as a result of having proper parking, I think more around the football field, and
Yeah.
I know there's not really any handicap parking to the west side of the football field, so people are coming to our, like if you had to park close to the field, so I see that's on here, but we talked about it as more of a access more for football, or when the new gym is built, having that parking on that side as well.
There's gonna be more handicap,
Is there? 'Cause I
right there,
see two.
by the gate where you come in.
Yeah, because it's hard because of
Yeah, it's
only
all rock.
handicap. Yeah, it's rock and only handicap parking on
Right,
the east
and
side.
now that's gonna be
Yeah,
more.
this lot will have
Right.
extra handicap stalls.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, Drew, overall, I mean, with saying your head count now is similar to, or your head count at open in this building is similar to what it was, 2 years ago, with 419 stalls. You have there's 133 extra now to accommodate.
Yeah, my
accommodate
biggest
that.
disappointment is just that it was, oh, we're gonna do the parking, here's what the allowance is gonna be, and then later on, it's like, oh, and by the way, we need lighting, and then that's another $76,000.
Mhm.
Whereas that information at the front might have changed the decision on whether to go this route, so you're making decisions on adding something without knowing what the cost impact is actually going to be, so you're somewhat committed at that point in time.
Well, you're not committed to anything. You don't have to do the parking right now, I heard. I mean, it's in the GP, but it can come out.
Okay.
No work has been done on this road,
Oh, okay.
for advancement of that.
So in anticipation of lighting at a future date, could you already pull conduit through?
Put pull boxes or something like
Yeah.
that to it?
That's the most expensive part,
Oh, it is, the
Yeah.
pull boxes.
the conduit,
Well, I was
It's a
thinking
long
about
way out there.
if you put,
the conduit and the wire.
if you put pull boxes or conduit part of the way, and then could extend it in the future or something like that. If you did the parking in the future.
mean, I would strongly suggest that if you guys are ever gonna do this parking, you do it now, because if you're redoing this road and then you come and do the parking later, you're gonna rip out the whole road again.
Okay.
The grades to get this all to work, were quite.
So you kinda have to do it now, cause you said you
No.
didn't have to do it now, but if.
No, I'm just saying, I wouldn't replace the road at all, unless you're,
Okay, so it's a kind of a package deal then?
yeah. You can do whatever you want, I'm just saying
Right.
from a value, best use
That's a good point, though.
of funds thing.
Yeah.
I would say you guys do this now, whether you want to do the lighting or not. You know, I put it as an action item tonight, knowing that probably take more conversation. So, the only risk you have is that the price could go up in a couple weeks. This work, it's not a timing or lead time issue at this point, because this work isn't gonna happen until next spring, summer.
So, is there additional cost besides electrical for this piece of work?
They're still working that out, and I
So we're
think
approving something that we don't know
The whole
the
picture.
total cost.
Yep. So fully understand that there may be reservations about that, but with the knowing that there could be a price increase, I think unless we wanted,
So the lighting is the price sensitive thing, so of the total, you know, you have a lot of other stuff in there, what's the lighting piece of it?
the lighting is about 5,000 a pole, so it's about, 25,000.
Okay. So, price increase of 10% is a $2,000 swing,
Yeah, I don't know what it is, or what,
or 20%,
yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time we've seen this drawing, is that right? With this added parking like this and
There was,
We approved.
there was a drawing in the
approved.
GMP package.
with the parking like
Yeah.
this?
allowance.
Yeah.
Cause we talked about angle flat.
Conduit can't be pulled from it's coming from the high school down. I don't know anything.
It comes from the gym.
Comes from the gym down, but it can't come from like the wrestling building up? Is that not? Cause there's
There's-
lights at the stadium, right? I don't know how this all works, I'm just asking the question.
No, it's a good question. That I would have to ask the engineer.
Yeah,
because-
why it can't, cause there's lights at the stadium and there's electricity at the wrestling room.
I don't know if it's that there's not the capacity or the power. All
Yeah.
the other lighting is coming from the gym.
These
But I will
are
definitely
LEDs,
ask
it
the
should
engineer
almost be
question.
free.
What?
If they're LEDs, they use all, I know what the lights we put in are supposed to be using a lot less than what we took out, so.
Well, what, I guess I'm sitting here confused. We've already approved the road.
The road.
We've
An
approved
allowance
it.
for the road.
We've approved an allowance for the
Is that
road.
correct?
Yeah.
What other, I mean, in addition to the lights, what other costs do we think we might have that we haven't ironed out yet?
So what I'm waiting on from the town board is, so the engineering details for the final layout of the parking, because at the last minute added, the decision was made to add more parking along this road. Didn't have time to be fully engineered before the GMP was approved, so McCown put together a, allowance based on the information they had.
So what I remember was a thicker road, the road with thicker asphalt being 8 inches of asphalt. I don't remember discussion about parking.
That was way back at GMP.
Yeah, the last one was an upgrade to the asphalt thickness.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think it's a.
I thought we approved parking
I
along
thought we
there,
did.
It was quite a while.
Yeah, I remember talking about the parking.
but I don't remember seeing the design of it, approved parking areas.
Well, I mean, so our risk tonight is if we don't approve it, it's just the cost increase, the lighting, and we can come back and visit that, and we
Absolutely.
can take that risk upon ourselves of Because if there's other costs here, we could change our mind on the parking yet. I mean,
And what are the other costs?
I guess I'd hate to be locked into the lights tonight.
Yeah. Give me just a second here. Alright, so this was from the GMP. This is from the GMP presentation, and this is just one of the drawings. Like I said, this was because the engineer, we didn't have, once the decision was made to put this as an alternate in the bid package, the engineer didn't have time to design it, but this was shown, and we talked through all this at GMP, that this is where those
All right.
additional parking stalls would fit in.
So what's your estimate on how long it would take to get the full cost of what it would take? Like, it sounds like there's
I
still
think
pricing and design.
By like the end of the week, they should have it. They were just working through a couple last things from the design. So I think it's gonna be in the neighborhood of $30,000 more than the allowance that's approved in the GMP.
So
And-
in addition to the 76 that you're talking about here?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can tell you now that I have this open. $175,000 was the
Yeah.
Main Street paving. Yeah,
So, and was that road always designed with curb and gutter?
sorry, say that again?
Was the road always designed with curb and gutter?
Yeah,
So that was 175, but a decent portion of that is the road itself. Then you have the parking included in that.
Right.
That was 175, so what we're looking at now is it could be another $100,000 in addition to that.
Mhm. So I will get answers on the, Kaya, your question, and then Drew, your question about, you asked a question about the power poles as well.
Yeah, about, putting some pole box, being able to do the power poles later, pole boxes and conduit.
Oh, you asked about regulatory, that was.
That, yeah, and that one too.
Well, the additional $30,000 cost that we're working on, will that just have to do with the parking, or that could, part of it could be for the road as well?
I think the only thing that has to do with the road, and that's what's taking so long, is because asking them to very meticulously point out exactly what is different from the assumptions they made in $175,000 originally. So they're writing all that out, so it's really easy for everybody to understand. I think the portion of it that may have to do with the road itself is, once they got into figuring all the spot elevations, they have to redo the, curb cut down here where it meets Main Street. So that wasn't, we thought we could keep that. So some of the cross slopes, so. Right now, it's all kind of meshed into one, between the road and the parking. To break that out would probably be a little more effort, because now you gotta bring the curbs and the, drainage and everything back into the road.
Right now, we have parking out there, but it's a gravel parking that's, like, we don't have.
Temporary.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we can put in for this project to eliminate the extra parking we did.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I like the idea of doing the thing right, but I guess I'd like to know the total cost, I guess.
yeah,
Well, right now when you go to any event, whether it's soccer or football or whatever, down at the football or at the stadium, I guess the soccer and football, but there's not a lot of good parking in that vicinity anyway. So, I mean, just for an overall campus, I feel like adding some, nice
I think the lighting is important as well, when you think about the, band members walk back in the dark, going back, I mean, there's a lot of people that are walking back to their vehicles and stuff, so I see the potential, I mean, I see the benefit of the lighting for the people that travel along that, just for the.
I just wanna know what the total is before I would, cause I don't wanna piecemeal it up and at the end you add it all up. That you don't know what it's actually gonna cost till the last approval.
That's fair. Is this I can't figure out how to enlarge it on my screen, but is this a sidewalk that's behind the parking? It is?
There's a sidewalk that goes all the way up there.
The sidewalk only goes to the handicap
Right there.
stall at the entry to the field from the school. There's not sidewalk
Okay.
along this side. There's,
So what's this?
The sidewalk.
And that's the handicap stalls right there.
yeah, that's the
this.
sidewalk, yeah.
So
It
the
just doesn't go
band,
that way.
like when you're talking about the band would walk on the sidewalk back to
They
the
always stay
school.
on the road generally.
So then, but these are the lights, right?
No, down further.
Yeah,
Other,
Keep going.
we're one,
There should be 4 red X's.
2, 3, 4.
Oh, God. Okay, do that again.
1, 2, oops, sorry, let me start from here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
so
The
they don't
other-
need to follow along the sidewalk.
Those are the 4 additional.
Those are the 4 additional.
The other ones are still there, so
Yes.
I guess so the ones that are already there and already approved then,
Yeah, this one was already there. This one had a single head on it. It's now going to 2 heads.
so they illuminate that sidewalk, I guess that's my whole,
Yes. Yeah,
So the sidewalk goes from the handicap parking area back up to the school?
correct. It connects, goes all the way here, crosses this road, and goes over here to the central court.
I think it's all good stuff. I think most of us would probably be for it. It's like to Drew's point is, if we pay for the light, we're locked in the lights now, we're locked into the whole thing. We don't know what all the total bill is
right,
yet.
right.
I mean, the risk is the price goes up,
Yeah.
Right.
but we don't know the total.
Yeah. But the price of, this price increases typically in that, what I've seen this year is
Yeah.
10%,
10
15%.
to 20. Steel was 20
Yeah.
in about 45 days, but yeah.
Yeah. But that's usually the jumps that they take.
I wouldn't expect it to be any more than that. So, that's the lighting, and then conduit's a little volatile right now too. There'll be a lot of conduit in this, but yeah, that's the risk, and I think you should have the rest of the costs, updated costs for this together within a week or 2. So I can have a conversation with McCallum and their sub, about how serious these cost increases might be, and, we can talk about whether if there happens to be another opportunity to bring it from the board, or wait until the August board meeting.
I have another quick question. So even if you do the first 2 lights, the second 2 lights, would you save any money and or would it even make sense to put lights on the back, the building that's there?
Yeah.
Like the wrestling building faces the road, so
Yeah.
could you potentially just do lights that are on that building that point, cause that, it's so close, so I feel like in my mind you could put lights there and it would serve the same purpose it's less maintenance cause you're not maintaining the pole, well, I mean, I don't know how you maintain poles, but they did fill
Well,
bird
the
nests
LEDs,
over
luckily, there's
a lot of
it's
time.
a lot less, but.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely an opportunity, and I'll run that by the engineers. I don't know if the light would throw all the way over parking stalls, but if the concern is safety crossing the roadway, it would definitely be better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but since we're exploring
Well, power side of
options.
things too, those lights don't take that much power. I think your point of, could you pull power from the building that's right next to you versus all the way from the gym?
like it when I
Great
have good
questions.
ideas, Drew. Thanks.
That is a good.
No, it's a really good question, and, you know, I don't know if the engineers looked at that or not, so, it's a good thing to ask him. Okay, while we're looking at this, I know there has been some questions and thoughts about the bowl area and potentially developing that into parking. So I wanted to just throw this up here and kind of fill you in on some conversations that have been going on with the engineers.
Fill us in.
Oh, no pun intended. Really? Okay, so this dotted out area is approximately the area the engineers identified could potentially be filled in to create parking. He gave a range of 40 to 50 additional stalls that could fit in here once you lay everything out and get your turning radiuses and your ins and outs and all that. So there is it is a potential, but it is in a floodplain. So in order to find out if it's even possible, there's applications that have to be filed with FEMA and design work that has to be done. So if it was something that wanted to be investigated, there was I got my numbers all mixed up, $10,500 cost to make those applications and do that design with what the engineer estimated about a 75% chance of success. So saying there's a 25% chance that FEMA could say, no, you can't do anything. So you have to spend some money to investigate it.
Would that be part of a master plan, say, hey, if we need that's an option or something like that?
I think it very well could be, you know, obviously to access this area, it would,
There's added cost.
yeah, you'd be changing some of the parking you just put in for entrances and stuff, but if you're talking down the road 10 years or whatever, you're gonna be resurfacing at some point anyway, so,
I mean,
but,
my concern is those 40 to 50 stalls with that amount of work gets to be, I don't know, you know, you probably have $1 per stall or $1 per spot for everything else, and then, you know, it's $1 per spot for something for that area. Does it get what kind of premium are you paying?
so I did talk a little bit about that with the team, and if you have to import soil to make it happen, it probably is more expensive per stall. So the standard range is like 8,000-9,000 per stall. So that could get more expensive to import, and depending on how big the retaining wall on the back has to be.
Oh, yeah, that can
So you could be, you know, $10,000 to $12,000 a stall.
So-
But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward,
so potentially 40 to 50%.
potentially.
Yeah.
So if that's 40 stalls, so if you take I don't know, if I just used another section and then guesstimated how long the side of the football field would be towards the park. So the same concept along this road coming in, is it crazy to think that you could duplicate that along the road behind the guest bleachers?
I don't think, well,
That's
it's gotta be
pretty
a
close.
conversation with the city too, because in order to do that, you'd have to culvert that drainage ditch.
Oh,
and
okay.
lift over it.
Okay,
It's pretty close.
It is pretty close.
it's what?
It's very close.
Where are you talking about?
Right behind the visiting bleachers, put a row of parking right behind the
My
bleachers.
guess is the fence is on the city right away anyway.
I'd
It's private
say
city
so.
property.
Oh, yeah.
This is my speculation.
I'm just trying to think of where you could get, so like,
Prohibited from building on it because there's an easement.
They just put some new curbing in.
so when Drew's saying, I wanna know where on the campus we would have additional parking if we were at capacity, right? So then I was just trying to think, if this section adds 40 parking spots, then you have the, you know, potential of the west of the west campus parking, and I don't know how many that is, but I was just
Well,
trying to think of where else you would put parking.
During the design, they identified enough spots to keep the ratio the same at full build out. I think, I personally, I look at this as an works better long-term in lieu of doing something? Because there was talk about something to the north of that, right?
In
'Cause
the
you-
practice field?
Yeah, because I would
Yeah.
say I would prefer probably keeping the practice field and putting parking to the south and, you know, so it's
So,
a trade-off.
You know,
You're not getting both,
I think in terms of short-term,
I think.
short-term decisions, you have, with the current design, there's 133 more stalls than you had last year.
Yes.
So I think from a capacity standpoint, you guys are in a good place right now, and that could be an option, for the master plan conversation that I wanted to just share.
Yeah, it's just that these the 70 there, there's 70 along this?
77, yeah.
77 along that, I mean, are, if your destination is the school is the high school building, then those stalls of 77 are, less ideal. I mean, a lot more steps to go that way. Those 77 benefit athletics more than they benefit.
Correct. They were never part of the original, count to reach the necessary
Yeah.
parking count. So.
The kids did park down there when the parking lot
Yeah,
was
they don't have a
closed.
choice right now.
I know, but I didn't hear a lot of them complaining, so.
Oh, yours must have got there early, cause I
Oh, never mind then.
Hey, incentive to get up and out the door.
She's usually pretty early, but some reason I.
So all that dirt that we moved to the side, do we have to do something with that? Is that gonna stay there? Like, if we had to move it, then I understand moving it to that location if it had to be moved.
You
Or
don't
is it-
have to move it. It is not, they already moved it out of the floodplain, so it can stay where it's at and be.
What about
depending on
that one
comes
pile
from-
that's kind of out there by itself?
That's
It's
topsoil.
Just, okay, so that's,
Yeah, that's the good stuff. So they will probably use a little bit of that in the upcoming edition,
okay.
but not all of it. So that can be used for, you know, future parking lot area, for the, you know, if the maintenance shed goes, it can be pushed down there. It's really a stockpile for you guys to use. It costs money to haul it off, so you might as well, it's like brown gold.
Greenhouse.
Okay.
So what area is determined floodplain in that bowl?
That's a, I don't know if
Do
it's
you
shown
know?
on this drawing, or it was a separate drawing the engineer had sent. I'm sorry, too many drawings open. Yeah, this one doesn't, it's not on here. So, I can send you the other drawing that has, there's two different tiers of floodplain. There's floodplain and flood area.
Floodway?
Yeah. Well, this is what he identified as a developable area that, stayed out of the restricted building area.
Well,
So-
if anything can go in there, usually parking is the highest probability of getting.
You're not
Or
gonna
are you thinking
ruin anything.
a different space, or you're just trying to understand?
No, I
So-
just wondered.
So I just wanted to fill you all in on those kind of conversations that were going on with those, and it sounds like it
Why don't they just buy?
can all be part of the master plan.
Okay, I got it. So to tie those two different topics together on parking, one thing that would be good to know is if you're pulling power from if you're pulling power from the, athletic area or the gym or one of the two, and you decide to at some point in the future make those 40 to 50 spots, do you have enough power available to actually light that up?
Yeah. No, that's,
So rather than looking at it from, not to say you wouldn't do it, but if you're looking at it from the, you know, pulling power from the locker room, that area, it's like, is there enough there that you could do 40 to 50, or, you know?
well, you already have those two. You already have these two in here
question.
that come from the gym. So if you continuous run.
Okay, so that same run is going down all the way,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So on
Okay.
that, on that bowl thing,
Yeah.
can you put, when you tear down the old gym and the east stuff, can that be put in that spot, or is that just not an option?
No, it's not an option. There was an email, I can send it to you, Jim, if you wanna distribute to everybody. But we did talk to the engineers about it, and it's against code, city code to fill with rubble.
I have no idea, I'm asking, just somebody raised it to me.
Okay, so that is an action item. Like I said, if the action is, not taken, then we'll just put it with the, overall picture of that for the August board meeting and have an update if there are any price increases at that time. Okay. Project design enhancements. Just roll right into another. So this is not an action item tonight, but just a, kind of revisit and preemptive ahead of next month's meeting. So I left this all with you after the board retreat last week. The center column here, approved August 9th, is what is intended to be on the agenda. These are enhancements to the existing, more or less, scope of the high school bond project. These were identified through conversations with DLR and the administration based on things that were kind of scaled back during the design phase for budget concerns. And so things were identified as, good additions back into the project as we were having this conversation. Are we doing, let's make sure we're doing everything at the high school right before expanding onto other projects. So most of it has to do with the West Campus, and some of them are just kind of interior aesthetic upgrades to areas that were not included in the original renovation scope. And then one of them has to do with results from the abatement survey and some additional abatement that can be done now versus just leaving it in place. The largest single line item is this northern property fence. So it's installing a black aluminum picket fence from the northwest or the northeast entry, parking lot entry, across the north side of the practice field and the football field over to the far northeast corner of the property. It includes columns along the way,
What type of column are they?
stone, or brick, brick that matches, brick with stone cast stone. So, that's, that price, sorry, that 122. So, I have all the exhibits and examples that show the detail of these scopes were included in that meeting, that we originally had back in, well, I guess it was before this March, so I think it was February. So I can resend that all back out if that would be helpful just for these specific line items that will be on the August agenda. So any questions on that before we visit next month?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to break those all out again, and just what they're voting on.
Yeah.
This is the handout from the retreat. So, I don't think we have it.
Yes.
That's high school.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, further down, further down the highway, you got, I think is it the Orchland? And then the stone plant, they have that big
Yeah.
No, it looks like iron, but it's aluminum. That's kind of what it is. Okay. That's all I had. As always, the change order log was attached, showing all the change orders approved to date. And then, too many things open. Y'all haven't been, I think most everybody was at the walkthrough. But these are the hallways, got painted, ceiling going in. Beautiful sunset picture of the new parking lot. And the new front entry canopy going in. And then there's progress on the exterior brick. This is on the south face of building F.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I noticed that the stone part on the original front side, it's like, now that the white brick is up there, it looks really dirty. Is there a process for like washing that and as we go
Clean it
along?
all up.
Okay.
The stone or the brick?
It's like the stone that's on the original, like in front of the, what used to be the main entrance.
Yeah.
Those columns, like they're strips that come down, but now that that white brick is up, you really tell how dirty that looks, and I didn't know
Is
there
it
was
the one
a-
into the T-pack or the one down?
all the way across. It's from top to bottom. Like it looks,
I think that'll do.
I'll look at it. I mean, there's
Like-
ways to clean masonry,
okay.
but. it's
I mean, now
not-
that you, like, now that we have that, it looks nice and new and clean. You look at the other side, it's like, oh gosh. So I didn't know if there
So
was.
one of
a
the
way-
other things that was originally on this list, too, that, kind of put a backseat to pricing is some of the rust staining on the precast that's up on the T-pack as well. But I'll look, I don't think I've noticed that yet. I'll look at it.
It's not the brick, it's like the rock stuff that's.
That's, yeah, like the bumpy stone, where it looks like it was, yeah.
Some of that will
I'm
come
sure that
down,
can be
won't it?
cleaned.
Or, I mean, part of that'll get,
It's, no, it's right in the main, it's right in front of, it's in front of the old gym, that whole section in front of the
Yeah,
old
I
gym.
think, oh, I know what you're saying.
There's like 3 or 4 strips.
Right, right. No, that'll probably, that needs to be all power washed out. I think they, yeah, look like that. I know what you're talking about.
If it's just, yeah, if it's just dirt,
And I didn't
surface,
go-
they can power wash it, otherwise there's,
I didn't look at it. I
ways to
could just,
chemically treat
It just doesn't look new.
Huh?
It doesn't look right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I can look into that and report back. Okay,
Okay. Jeez.
I have no voice left, so.
thank you.
Just gonna sit down here.
Any other questions for her? With that, we'll move to the consent agenda, which has been amended to remove 2.17. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Anyone?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. Justin, if you want to say aye.
Aye.
All right, we got everybody, sorry.
Audra, did Barbara read back with you?
Yeah, she was not able to get the original prices before the meeting tonight, but she.
Okay.
We got a whole bunch of stuff here. I guess we're jumping in public comment. Doesn't look like we have any public comment. So we jump into Lauren's report,
Okay.
4.1.
Okay. First of all, thanks to everybody who gave up their valuable time for Wednesday's retreat. You know, as I mentioned a couple times in my Friday reports or emails, I think there was a lot of really good conversation that took place. Everybody did a nice job of sharing, you know, their perspectives, and so it was good. I did, I guess I emailed Doug Michael's data out. He should have gotten that this morning. It had all the slides and everything that you had requested. We do have our administrative retreat tomorrow at the same location in the conference room. DLR was fantastic host for us for that, and so we're looking forward to that tomorrow. And then Lori's talked about K-Jump with Symmetry. Negotiations were approved, and I handed out just the notes and what all went into the negotiated agreement. It's not the official verbiage that Tanya works on,
It's,
but you have it.
yes,
She has it.
it's attached. The official negotiated agreement is attached to your
The-
agenda.
Okay, so those are my notes, just from, as we walk through negotiations over the last 3 to 4 weeks. There was quite a bit of discussion about the vision and mission statement review, and I think that's just something that if we want to have a special board meeting to work on that, I just need your input on when would be a good time to have KSB come back and talk about those things. That was just one of the many topics that we had Wednesday, and I think if that's important, I think we need to address that. What would be a good vision, mission statement to help update? And then, of course, Tanya's gonna talk a little bit about the strategic plan from 17 to 23. You got a handout on that. The master plan update, Amber was supposed to get back with me today, and I haven't talked to her today as far as what the next steps are. You know, we had talked quite a bit about getting community input, so I need to have that discussion with Amber. The back to school event is this Friday, August 20th. We're gonna be talking about that tomorrow. That's gonna be very similar to the one we did 2 years ago with everybody, the hot dog meal, and then it's a back to school event. It's not a red-white football game, it's not a scrimmage, because they actually scrimmaged the week before. So this is very similar to what we did 2 years ago, where we have elementary, middle school, and high school students recognized, band, all sorts of people on the turf or on the track on the evening, that Friday evening. And then Lori did talk about the RNR, and we'll be working on that and get more information on that as we move forward, as we develop the budget over the next several weeks.
One thing on the master plan, I thought that was really valuable time. A suggestion I have, though, I think that would have probably moved along or provided myself more background or insight, would have been, when Amber was putting up the slides of the, buildings or what something could look like, I'd almost like to have it start with a problem statement, or here's the situation, or things that gaps we've identified. I think it's pretty easy to identify for maintenance items. Hey, things need to be maintained, that's the problem. And here's our recommendation, or here's our assessment of what falls into that category, right? And I think you mentioned that in that meeting. But, the area, that loop area was, well, here's what it could look like, but I don't know, but I wasn't clear on why those things are shown, or what problems we were trying to solve. For example, if you could start with and I'll make this stuff up because just as an example, like, at our current growth rate with the athletics and what's going on with the rec up there, our availability of fields has decreased by 20% in the last 10 years. And therefore, based upon that trend, in so many years, we'll have these scheduling conflicts, or we won't have this ability to do this, or we can't have these type of activities because the existing fields don't have this type of setup, the capability, or, and what's driving that, and then go, okay, and then here is one option that we could do, or even better, hey, and so that's our problem statement, and now here are 3 options that we looked at to solve that, and here is our recommendation for these reasons. Kind of step through it like that.
No, I get you. I understand what you're saying.
I think sometimes that information happens, like someone said in that meeting that the administrators had met I think it was Mitch and Cody maybe. They were talking about how they had met and had a meeting to go through all of that stuff prior to, you know, us meeting and everything. So I think a lot of that stuff actually happens, but then
It
I
doesn't.
think where the breakdown is that happens, and then we get the information on the back end, but we don't know where it came from.
Right. No,
So,
I
like, to make data-driven decisions, it'd be impossible because we don't have that information. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it doesn't exist or people didn't do the footwork to get there, but it's just the communication
and we
breaks
didn't
down.
take notes, you know, those conversations, which I get, I
Yeah,
understand.
I'm really
Yeah.
interested in the why.
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
what are we trying
That
to
won't,
solve?
that won't be hard to develop.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that feeds, I mean, we've got some time at the end of the meeting to kind of hash out how we move that forward a little bit, and so
Good.
that's a good point.
Okay. And that's all I have, I think.
Any questions for Lauren? Not Tanya?
All right, a couple pieces of information that I handed out to you was the original strategic plan document that went through the process, the one that has the cover on it with the big T. That's just for your information. That is also one that we have posted on our website that Jim had found where it has the checked boxes under each target area, completed in process and not yet started. That was just for people's information if they wanted to keep track on their own. The full document is next. That is the chart that we used as we developed that, where we had our action steps, the responsible party, the resources, timeline, and evaluation. Now that evaluation is at a very high level. It's not written like SMART goals, and it's not intended to. A lot of what we do, we drill down within our buildings. Our administrators, our teachers have those SMART goals, but this is just that high level. And this was the document that Jim had been searching for that he had talked about as we were at the meeting.
Do you mind
last
if I
week.
ask a quick question?
Mhm.
So like on the first page, you have reinforce importance of and establish high expectations. And then on your evaluation, you have assessment data, student teacher goals. Like where is that information?
That's within each building,
So, like-
each grade level.
So-
So it's not in this document because this would be your higher level document, but there are those
So
documents.
like, for example, what's our graduation rate compared to other schools in the state of Kansas? Or how are our students performing in math and science compared to, like where is that information that you're acquiring for this and where is that accessible?
Yes, we have that in different places. It's on our report card that's on the KSDE website. It's also in our information that we present to KISA, and it's also in our Greenbush information, and then every building has its own information too. So this is just your higher level document, but yes, we do have this. And we update those yearly.
Is that something that's on our website?
This full document is
No, that
not.
data that you just, that you just referenced there.
The Kansas Department of Education school report card, yes, you can click on it from our website, or you can go directly to KSDE. That is on our website. The KISA document is not, but that's been presented to you each of the years except for this last year when we did the pause, so. But I can get that to you separately as well.
No, I just was curious about how you're making that available.
And we do need to have it better accessible, so we can drill down and see all of the results of this. This was just the higher level information. But this could help you determine where we have been, and as we have those discussions of where we want to go for the future of strategic planning, our vision, mission, our action steps and all that, this will give you the background where we've already been. So that's for your information as we move forward. A couple months ago, we talked about Panorama Survey, and so that is the other handout that I have for you there, the results. This is a document that is, it's kind of a template put together by Panorama of what information to share with school boards. So this is actually a presentation. I'm not doing it as a presentation, but as we walk through on page 3, these are the surveys that we did. Under families, I said we're going to start surveying them this coming school year. This last school year was our pilot year, and we just started with just a basic student survey. So next year we'll add in the family surveys and then the staff surveys. For the students, there are two separate surveys. There's the K2 survey, which is the teacher perception. So at that point, kindergartners are not able to talk to you about their level of grit. So it's a teacher perception of how the students respond in situations. And then grades 3 through 12 have a survey that asks them situational questions. So the survey going on page 4, these were the voices we heard. So we heard from 1,253 students out of 1,494, which is 83.9% of the 3rd through 12th grade students. When we gave this survey, there was the whole COVID break in between with, between Thanksgiving and Christmas where we were at home. So we did have some that did not respond to the survey. K2, we had 89.6. Some of those students actually moved in between that time. The odd thing about Panorama I've found is that when you upload your list of students, it stays static. So if you have a new student move in a week later, you can't add that student. They build those surveys upon the students from your upload, and it takes time. So there's a gap in there that we need to address and figure out how, if they're able to upload later, or if we have to just do a whole new survey or a whole new upload. So if you look below that, the grades K through 2 teacher perception, these were the survey results. I know it's a little small. So emotion regulation, if you look, 72% was the percent favorable. So 72% of our kids responded favorably to regulating their emotions. And so on down the line, you've got social awareness, 70%, engagement, classroom effort, self-efficacy, learning strategies, self-management, social perspective taking, and then grit. And keep in mind, again, the K2 was the teacher perception of how the student responded in situations. The next page.
So let me make sure I understand, Mike. So Panorama is asking a lot of questions, and then from that, they're saying, silent, that they're getting these categories. So I don't think it's not like 11 questions like, hey, do you have supportive relationships? And 82% and 6 through 12 said yes. What does the numbers tell you here?
Well, we selected those areas. Panorama has a wide array of what you can choose from, and these were the areas that we selected that we wanted to measure for students, like their emotion regulation, their grit. We selected all those areas, and within it asks different questions. The teacher perception survey is a little different because it asks the teacher to perceive a student in different situations, how they respond.
Okay, so classes grades 6 through 12 is on page 5. It says classroom effort, 66%. What is 66%?
That was the percent who responded favorably. So they give good classroom effort in their perception.
Okay, so it's not that they're okay, 66% are okay with the effort that's asked of them. They're saying that they give good effort.
Yeah, they responded favorably to those questions that asked them about giving good classroom or giving effort in the classroom. But if you look out to the right of that, you'll see that 66% is in between the 20th and 39th percentile. So the red ones indicate we're low in that area.
Yeah.
So it's comparing to the nation, and Panorama is used in many school districts in the nation. So anywhere you see the red dot, we're in the lower area. If you see green, we're in a favorable area. So I just pulled a few of those just to highlight, and then I went on to show some insights. So if you look on page 6, I talk about a couple of different insights from that data. So with the K2 students, the teachers in grades K through 2 report 72% of students are able to control his or her emotions when needed. So that's emotion regulation. But in the red there, you see 49% of students will try again when failing to reach an important goal and stay focused on a goal for several months at a time. So that's grit. So that's one area we've noticed in our K through 2 students. We really need to work on their grit, stick-to-itiveness, stay with a goal even after you failed to reach something. Insight 2 talked about the data from the third through fifth grade students.
So, on that grid, so then, I mean, you just don't have a session on grid. I mean, there's gotta be other things that indirectly that influence that.
There are a lot of things that influence grit,
Right.
yes.
You do teach skills though,
Mhm.
that teach grit, that you give them opportunities to have grit, and
Yeah.
so there are things that you can teach them.
For each of these areas within Panorama, there's a playbook. So if I see that my classroom of students is really low in grit, I go to the playbook and it gives me additional activities that I can do with my students to help them build that
Okay,
skill.
so then so what are the steps or processes that we're doing to take, since this was done last
Last
year?
year. Mhm.
Then how, so that then we're consistently, applying that across all of these different grades and teachers. So is teaching in the classroom, you know, at the end of the year, different than it was prior to this survey being taken, and what changed? And I mean, basically, did what you described actually happen?
Well, yes and no, because we're building. This was our pilot year of giving this assessment, or
Okay.
giving this survey. Now that we have this initial data, we have a plan, and that's further on
Okay.
in this information. So let's look at Insight 2 and 3 real quick, and then we'll
Yeah.
flip back and discover some more about what our next steps are. How do we use this information? So third through fifth grade students, one of their positives there is their supportive relationships. And that, we really saw across our entire district. Our students report that we have really good supportive relationships. So 89% of third through fifth grade students reported feeling supported by family, friends, and adults at school, and that's 90th percentile nationwide, so that's fabulous. But one of the areas where we need to work on, again, is grit. So 57% of third through fifth grade students reported being able to persevere through setbacks to achieve long-term goals, and that's the 30th percentile nationwide. So we know that our students struggle with grit. Insight 4 and 5 is your 6th through 12th grade students. Again, positive supportive relationships. 82% of those students in grades 6 through 12 reported feeling supported by friends and family and adults at school. That's the 70th percentile nationwide. And then our 6th through 12th grade students struggle with self-efficacy. So 42% of those students believe they can succeed in achieving academic outcomes. That was the 10th percentile nationwide. So that's concerning. So what do we do from here? Now that we have this initial data, what happens next? So we formed that social emotional learning committee, and that group has used for their information CASEL's district-wide SEL social emotional learning action planning workbook. CASEL is highly, highly regarded nationwide in social emotional learning. We also use the Kansas Social Emotional and Character Developmental Model Standards, and then Kansas Multi-Tier System of Supports and Alignments, or you've probably heard it called MTSS. MTSS is normally known for helping kids in reading and math, but it also, there's the social emotional aspect of it as well. So we have our social emotional learning committee, and we, as that group was building everything this year, we took a look at our mission statement and our vision statement and then our strategic priorities. So we, again, go back to what we had just discussed with our mission vision. So we looked at those and we decided that yes, it was clear social emotional has a part in the mission and vision statement. It was very clear, and then especially on our strategic priorities, provide that social and emotional support for all students. So that group got together and set these long-term goals. So at the bottom of page 11, there are long-term goals, and these are in draft form. We're going to review them again at the beginning of the school year. We will create an inclusive and safe schools for all students, where every student will develop a connection with at least one adult in their building, as evidenced by our screener, so developing those connections. K-12 classroom teachers will implement the SEL curriculum and resources according to scope and sequence per building schedule. So the curriculum that we put into place, not only in our playbook here in Panorama, but also the curriculum that we're going to use, which we have selected for our elementary. We have some for our middle, and we're still working on high school. We will have a scope and sequence of when teachers will need to use or teach these pieces in their classroom. Then we'll give this screener panorama twice a year, fall and spring, and that will drive our curriculum lessons. So on top of what we teach our students with our curriculum, what other pieces do our particular students need, and we'll provide that for them. We'll also do professional development and trauma-informed practices and interventions. So we're gonna do that once per semester, and we've already started that. And each year, students will set individual social and emotional goals and show progress towards those goals. So much like we do with MAP, they set their individual growth goals. They'll also set those for social and emotional learning. And we'll measure those with our progress monitoring and diagnostic tools. So that committee, we will continue with the screener, this panorama screener in fall and spring. We're going to add our staff and family surveys as well. We will finish identifying our curriculum and resources, develop that scope and sequence of when teachers teach what, and then we will identify the rest of our diagnostic tools and our interventions that we use with those students. And there's the triangle of MTSS. I put that in there just if you know the triangle of MTSS, the bottom is all students, so we serve all of our students in all those areas, and then those students that need more supports, we maybe have groups, and then the top would be our individual students with more needs. So this coming school year, we're gonna provide professional development for our staff. So we have this plan for August. How do you understand your survey results? So yeah, you can give a survey, but if you don't look at the data, it's not gonna do you any good. So looking at individual survey results, so we'll look at the district results, the school, the classroom, and the individual student results, and how we will share those during the school year with students so they can set their goals, and then also with parents, because it's important for parents to know the results of the data as well. And then we'll start up and maintain student support plans. So for those students who are showing a real need and concern in some of those areas, how do you put together a support plan for those students? Do they need some group time? Do they need additional information on group? Do they need to meet with a school social worker? And then use Panorama Playbook along with our curriculum and resources. So if we see students are really struggling in this area, we have this provided in our curriculum, but then we also have additional resources in Panorama Playbook. So there's a lot going on and going into this, but it's the beginning.
Right, so I have several questions. One is, when you do the survey, because if you're doing 2 surveys a year, then I know this was our first time, but we're almost 9 months after the survey, we're seeing. So the time from when you take the survey, you get the results, then you adjust your trajectory or your plan early enough or quick enough so that you can start to see potentially some impacts with your next subsequent survey, right? So what is our target that we're kind of setting for ourselves for how quickly can these results be interpreted and an action plan be created and implemented so that then you can start to see that for the next survey?
Right. Well, your 2 surveys are your basic screeners. So they're just gonna screen the initial information, but then those students who we see have some pretty concerning results in their initial survey, we will do more interventions with those students and then do some diagnostic and progress monitoring. So we're gonna monitor those students more frequently with additional tools and make sure that they're making some progress. So your regular student who maybe doesn't have any social emotional concerns or very few, they're just gonna plug along. And it's kind of the same thing that you would do with a student struggling with reading or math. You don't just give them a test at the beginning of the year and test at the end and go, whoops, I guess you test them at the beginning, and for those who have those concerns, you keep working with them and monitoring them in certain areas, and then when you give the test at the end of the year, you've got all this other data too because you did that progress monitoring more frequently.
Okay, so as far as the time that it takes to interpret the data and adjust action plans, are we talking, 2 weeks after you get the results, 2 months?
It'll be pretty quick. Once we close the survey, the results are immediately ready. so teachers can start accessing those. My plan is to have that ready in time for us to do professional development, to sit down and look at those. We'll have initial time to look at those, but then a further training on how do we develop some further lessons on grit. What other pieces do you use for progress monitoring?
Okay, and then, so then the other thing, because we talked about potentially adjusting our vision plan, rewriting it, and we talked about in our planning about, focusing more on growth, which the board will have to discuss and everything. But, and using map data as the foundation for that, and really looking at each individual student and their growth. So is there information that then ties these results in to how well you should be able to see growth in the map side as far as academics? So that, I'll give you, for example, so some of these scores that are lower.
Mm-hmm.
So schools that are in the top percentile, are they consistently or predictably hitting those growth goals or exceeding those growth goals more often than those who are in the lower percentile in those areas? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. There is a piece that you can get within Panorama that directly ties that together, but it is extremely expensive. We have the ability to do that. Forrest and I probably need to do a demo at some time with 5Lab and what that looks like. We have a data piece. I don't even know how to describe it really. It's a background. It's all a data dump. All of the data that we have in our entire system is dumped into this system, and you can disaggregate and sort however you want, but it's like this gigantic data monster right now. We've been working with this company to build it, so as we add more pieces to it, it tells us more of a story. And so it's still in kind of the building process. Actually, our administrators don't even, I don't even think we have given them access yet to look at. Right now it's just gigantic.
I mean, how long have we been working on that?
Well, right before the pandemic is when we started with the company to build things, and then there was pandemic, and then a lot of the data that is going in there we've sent to them in secure files. So it takes some time to build it, but this school year, we need to take a look.
Because if our focus is on individual growth of students, then whatever effort we're putting into this, I want to have an understanding of, okay, to improve these scores here, we can expect this kind of improvement over here academically.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, and individual students will see results too, because they're going to be setting their growth goals for reading and math and for social emotional. So they'll be able to see within themselves that piece, and then our teachers can see that individually and classroom and grade level and building.
The parent then gets to see that at parent-teacher conferences
Yes.
or wherever that.
Yes, there are parent reports that are pretty good. There'll be a piece, obviously, to send home to parents to help them learn to read or analyze the results. So there'll be next steps. We have a wealth of information with Panorama that they provide a lot of templates for us to share with board members, parents, families, community. So,
Okay, so you feel like this is really valuable and something to do?
yes, I do. Yes.
So then, are we going to have it fully implemented for next semester? I know it'll be a learning process, and you're always getting better at it.
Yes.
But then, so next semester, then we'll do so we'll have 2 next year instead of just this 1 this
Yes.
last year.
Yes, and in fact, I have training planned for August to introduce, now that we've taken this, how do we look at the data? Where do you go? What do you see? What are you looking for? And then next steps on playbook curriculum.
Okay. Good.
It's good stuff. Pretty exciting.
So on this thing where it says that each student, just one thing that I've picked or that sticks out to me, I guess, is it says establishing or making sure each student has one relationship with a staff member, right?
Mhm.
So how do you track that?
Well, at the elementary, we would assume it's probably the classroom teacher or the music teacher or the PE teacher.
So the goal is to have, like, that they have a meaningful relationship where they feel like they're a confidant?
Yes.
Is that that's
Yes.
the goal? So then how can you, how do you assume that? Like
Yeah,
it's not really measurable if you're assuming it.
We talked about how to measure it. You know, one of the things when we wrote those goals was how do you measure whether or not they have an adult that they can trust and confide in. We have developed pre and post surveys with students, and just a quick question for them that could appear on their Chromebook, like, you know, is there an adult in the school that you feel like you can trust if you have problems or a concern? And we feel like at the middle school and at the high school, those will probably likely be developed at the middle school during that warrior time. High school could be homeroom, or it could be, you know, the band teacher or the choir teacher, or I'm particularly close to a chemistry teacher, or whatever it may be. But yeah, we have developed those pre and post tests so we can measure that, because that is hard. How do you,
Right.
it's not gonna show up in a survey or a grade or anything.
Right.
So, how are we setting targets for improvement over time? I mean, are we just, because my assumption is if it's important and we're focusing on it, and then we need to have some targets or goals, and then, you know, okay, then who's responsible or accountable for meeting those goals and adjusting how we're doing things? I mean, how's that structured then?
That's always the trick when you start something new,
Right.
because how do you set a goal, and then what if you don't meet it and you have to adjust it, and does that mean you failed? And
Well, the most important thing is have a goal.
right.
Right? I mean,
Right.
And then you can go, okay, well, here's what the trend is, and so that is now outdated, you didn't have before. But at least having targets, and then who's responsible for reviewing that, and then making sure that adjustments are made.
Mhm. That'll be done along with map data. You know, map gives you a pretty good idea of what's an appropriate goal. This doesn't so much, but in the way we learn how to develop map goals and how we work with our students on, you know, what is it, how do you write a good goal, and what, you know, what's realistic? You can't improve 300%, you know. In the same way we work with our students on map goals, the same way we can work with them on panorama goals. And it'll be a learning process. I mean, there may be some goals that we set that are just, they seem okay at the beginning, but then they're kind of unrealistic, so we have to.
So is it the teacher that sets the goals? Is it the building administrator, the grade leaders? Is it the district office?
You know, it's everybody working together. So initially, I will do the training with them, and then they will set goals in their classrooms, their grade levels, their buildings. So, you know, as they work together with their teams, they'll work with each other on, you know, is that realistic, or is this goal more applicable? Is this more timely? And so it's similar to what we do with our map goals.
Yeah, my concern is if everybody's responsible for it, then no one is, you know, it's like a clear hierarchy of who's each roles and responsibilities at each level, and what they're, you know, both with regards to maps and then also this panorama.
Right, so teachers are responsible for their students and their student goals and their classroom goals. But then each grade level together has those goals.
Yeah.
And then the building, so the building administrator would oversee the entire building. The team lead would be the grade levels, the teacher would be the students, I would be the district. And so, you know, the same way we do with everything else, have a data warehouse of, you know, and it could be a Google form that you report to your building administrator, these are our goals, and then it goes into our data. It's exciting.
Yeah, I just don't know how you don't somehow have something to tie this in with the map, because you mentioned, you know, the map and stuff, but if you have two sizable sources of data that how you don't have some way to correlate them.
Right, and that's where 5Lab comes into.
Okay, so that's what.
Yeah, there's that massive data warehouse that then you can disaggregate.
I think that helps to set your goals.
Yes.
Because if there's as many schools as there are in this country that are using this kind of stuff, you'd think that by getting grit up 10 percentage points, you can expect it to impact these areas in the MAP scores or something like that. I don't know.
Well, and it
That's
should
what
affect
I-
things like graduation rates too, you know?
Right.
If you're constantly improving or getting better, you know, overcoming obstacles and setting those long-term goals and
Yeah,
achieving them,
life.
then, yeah, life.
Isn't it required by the state now to do the social emotional education for the students?
Yes, that is a piece of it.
Is there an amount of time that, I can't remember, that you have to spend on social and emotional?
Not that I recall. I don't recall seeing a specific time factor with it. You do have to have your screener identified and be using it, but I don't recall a time factor with it. All right, well, that's all I had for you. I didn't have a separate report. It was just looking at those few documents.
Thank you.
Alright. Anything else for Tanya? If not, we can move into action items. Action 5.1 is the negotiated agreement. As Lauren stated, I think, it's got the information there, base pay was bumped up to $40,200 and the rate, a few different other items that we've discussed. And the agreement's been updated and the teachers have accepted that, so unless there's any questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve the negotiated agreement for 21-22. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item 5.1.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. Justin? Still there?
Aye.
All right. All
Yeah.
unanimous. Action 5.2 is the KSB policy updates. I think we had those on there last time, and then Drew looked at them and has talked to Lauren. I don't know if you have any comments.
Just statute updates.
I would recommend that we approve it, move on.
All right. Is there a motion to approve action item 5.2?
I make a motion to approve item 5.2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Drew seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right. Justin?
Aye.
All right, unanimously approved there, Audra. The next is for the move vendor. We had Aaron's update. I don't think there was any other questions on 5.3. Is there a motion to approve that?
Make a motion to approve action item 5.3.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. Well,
Aye.
Justin. Unanimous. Sorry, there's a little lag here. Can't get used to it.
Sorry.
5.4 is the site lighting and fiber conduit that we talked quite a bit about. I guess the floor is open. I don't know if there's any questions, if the board wants to take action to approve that or to table that till August until we have the rest of it. I got the general feeling that it was to table that, but
I make a motion to table item 5.4.
is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor of tabling action 5.4, raise your right hand. Justin?
Aye.
Okay, unanimously approved to hold off on that. Item 5.5 is the furniture contract, and again, that's where we're asking the advance to approve up to $1.3 million with the details forthcoming. I guess I would move we do item 5.5 and give either Lauren or I the authority to approve that as needed when it comes in. Is there a second?
What is that to a maximum of?
1.3, yes.
I second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. Justin?
Aye.
Okay. Item 5.6, we haven't talked much about the bus stuff, so I'm gonna turn this over to you
Okay.
now here, Lauren, on the bus.
So, yes, all right, and if you've been following my Friday reports, Jill and I have been working on our bus rotation and our plan for continuing to improve our buses. I'm gonna table the approval of the 77 passenger bus. I would ask for us to table 5.6, okay? Because we don't have the bid, number one. And there's some things that have happened. Jill's father has some illness, and so we haven't been able to stay on track with that. So that'll come back in August. The lease of the bus, all right, so got a couple things going on here. Because we do need a minibus for August, I've made arrangements with Midwest Bus to lease a 2018 12+2, and then we can lease that, see, Aaron, we can lease that for as long as we want, or if we decide in August to go ahead and order our own bus, 2022 minibus, we could do that. But I had to get a bus on lease now so that we have it in August. We have 3 wheelchair students that need air conditioning in August, and we've had, we just don't have that.
I thought
Quite
we had a
frankly.
handicap
What?
minibus. I thought we had a.
We
handicap.
do, but we have to haul 3, and they don't all go on the same route. I mean, they go off in different directions, and they are actually brought to different locations daily. So that's why there is the need for an additional minibus. But what I'll talk more about, there are some advantages of leasing a sped bus with the wheelchair and air conditioning. Number one, it's the maintenance of those. If anything breaks down on a minibus, it is going to be the air conditioning and the wheelchair ramps. And so what a lot of schools do with minibuses is they lease those for 3 years with the option to buy a 4th year. If it's been a good bus, they'll maybe buy it or move on. But they wear out fast, those wheelchair buses, and that's just the issues that everybody has. So Midwest Bus understands our situation. If like in August, if we're to order a bus, a minibus, we may not get it till January or February. So we would probably have to lease that 2018 for up to 7 months.
So what are we?
I'm just going to let you, there's no action. I'm just letting you know that I'm leasing a 2018 bus for the next, well, until we come back and have this same conversation next month. I'll have a bid for both of these, and then we can discuss it and see what you guys think are the best options. It's like when you lease a vehicle of your own, there's advantages and disadvantages of either buying or leasing a vehicle from a.
So do you need us to approve like a amount and term for a lease right now? Or
No,
do you have a verbal with
it's
them?
right, yeah, I have a verbal, I don't have a contract. It's gonna be right at $1,000 a month.
For like 36 months.
Well,
Would you-
he'll go month to month with a minimum of 7 months and a maximum of 3 years. But
So what does that bus cost? We don't even know what it costs.
yeah, but if new, I don't know what the new cost is. I know what he's asking for a 2018 with 39,000 miles. He's asking 50,000. But I don't know what, I haven't seen the bus. It's in Arkansas. I don't know what kind of condition anything is in. I mean, it's just coming off lease. I'm assuming it's probably a pretty good bus, but you don't know until you see it.
I think what Lauren told me is the maintenance on that lift it's more, if you buy it, you're on your own, but if you lease it.
They take care of it. So if we were to buy a brand new 2022 minibus, we'll have to put tires on it, but there's a limit of miles, and hardly anybody replaces tires in 3 years on a minibus anyway. But they change the oil, it's a full warranty on the ramps, air conditioning, the whole setup.
So what's the history of the one we currently own?
We have trouble with the air conditioning. It's okay. They're used on a limited basis. I can't remember the year on it. We're not replacing it. We're adding.
No, I get all
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I understand that.
They're okay. We have more trouble with one of the minibuses than the other. What we're having is we just have more needs for wheelchair accessible buses.
Okay, so I guess at this time, I'd probably entertain a motion to table action item 5.6 to August.
in item 5.2?
Yes.
He wants to table 5.7?
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to lease the bus until we come back. We'll have this conversation again next month when I have more information on costs so we can compare either leasing for 3 years or.
Because you've got the
purchasing.
authority to lease it for the 6 or 7 months
Yes.
at a minimum,
Yes.
if you need.
Just a quick question to wrap this up. Can you get the vans handicap accessible versus a minibus?
For a conversion, almost impossible.
We have one van that's wheelchair
Yeah,
accessible.
So how is that comparative to a minibus?
These are a 12+2. I think the biggest thing is the accessibility for the people that are helping with the wheelchair
I've just asked.
person, yeah.
The van doesn't seat as many
Mm,
people.
No. It's, I'm not gonna say, it's a lot easier to put them in a minibus with the fold-out ramps. I mean, I haven't personally worked with that. Jill could answer that a lot better than I can,
No.
but,
How
yeah.
many support people do you need for like lunch?
If you had two, maybe, I would say 2 minimum, maybe 3.
It depends how many
And
students
then
you
all,
have on there.
but
and then-
sometimes, I know what happens is they like to, if they take a field trip, they'll put some regular ed students in those minibuses. I mean, it's part of the inclusion process. I've seen that. Not to say you couldn't do it in a mini bus or minivan, but that was Jill's recommendation. I'm just running with it.
It looks like we need to table item 5.6 and 5.7
Yeah,
next
we'll
month.
talk about
to
it
get
next month.
more detail. So I move when we table 5.6 and 5.7. Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Justin?
Aye.
Approved, okay. This leads us to 5.8, which was an added item on the agenda, and Lori mentioned it earlier. But I would move that we give Lauren and Lori the authority to pay the Symmetry bill. Comes in from the settlement with the KSB. The full amount of the bill is up to $45,628.27 cents. So not to exceed the full amount. Is there a second on that?
I would second that.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Justin?
Aye.
All right, motion carried unanimously, thank you. That takes care of all the action items. Board of Education discussion, we got the Leavenworth County Hazard Mitigation Plan on the item.
This
Is
was
that just for us to review?
Review at this point. We're gonna be meeting with the area superintendents on how to move forward with it. This is a large document that was created by Leavenworth, Wyandotte County, and one other county. Johnson County. There were people that served on the committee. I was not on the committee. I'm not even sure who from Tonganoxie represented it unless it was some of the county commissioners, perhaps. But they did have a committee that formulated this document. They've been working on it for several months. So, be my guest, if you want to.
It's something we're
Look
gonna have
through
to
it.
adopt as part of the school.
Well, I'm gonna find out if it's required that each school district adopts this hazard plan, but I'm assuming that's the goal.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
I'll provide more information as I get it.
Some light reading for everyone here. Master planning discussion, I mean, Lauren kind of mentioned it and tried to, hopefully everyone had a good time, appreciate everyone's time on that. I think, let's see, I tried to put some, I mean, I guess we gotta somewhat decide, you know, how, we went through the process, some of the options that were discussed, kind of how and when we want to move forward, and there's also getting the public input. I guess I'm open to thoughts and ideas. I mean, a separate special meeting, we can kind of outline the process, how we want to do those. criteria to kind of sort through some of those options. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to kind of digest and look at the information that was attached. I mean, if we're gonna have another meeting, I kind of need some ideas of when's everybody available. And then we gotta give Lauren some, and Aaron, I think, some guidance about taking some of that information to the public. And Drew raised some good points tonight about the, maybe on those projects, kind of the who or the why, the need and what we're solving there to help make some of that decisions. Any other?
Amber, I think, is going to provide maybe some of her input later this week that I'll share with all of you. It won't have dates, but maybe the process that she has in mind, the next steps, if that might help a little as far as what it might look like.
Yeah, I think a lot of that discussion, you know, I really liked the training that we went through with the KSB. But I mean, touching on that, the thing that I feel the thing that we talked about that I felt like to me is the most important is on the academic side of things is vision and mission and starting to talk about goals and really focusing on that. Because I think facility needs, although it is important, the master plan stuff I think is, we need to work on it, but I feel that the academic side is also more important and it's also more urgent, that we have to really start spending some time on that. And I just feel like we really need to be looking at that kind of stuff, because the reaction of what I saw there was we need to make it our own and really own it and start to move some things forward with talking about accountability and growth. And you know, I don't know if anybody else feels that way. I definitely want to proceed with the master plan on the facility side of things, but I really want to also.
If you'll look at the agenda that I gave you for tomorrow,
Yeah.
you'll see it's a really strong priority for Tanya and I that we.
And that's
we
great
get
that you're
working.
doing it, but I think the board needs to.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess we've got time for additional things. I guess this item is on the agenda, kind of how do we move that? I think the training helped identify we need to maybe focus on some other areas, but I guess particularly to this item on the agenda, I kind of would like everyone's input in terms of moving that forward. I guess it's wait and see what Amber has in this week and send out some options. And assume there's some willingness to meet, but maybe, if the general intent is
Problem,
that.
need statement, timeline, and then the options that were looked at that did that, because things were shown, but I was like, well, was this just picked because everybody liked it? Why did they like it? What other options were looked at that didn't make the cut, and why weren't they, or was there anything else, or, because I think we talked a lot about options there, that, well, why could you do this for a lot less and get a better and more value? So that's to me what I'm interested in.
Comments from others?
I agree with the educational piece. I think also taking a look at that report card, the Kansas report card, thinking looking at the data from there will be helpful too, especially talking with the high school and comparing that maybe to other districts our size and how we're doing compared to other districts our size.
And that's easy to do on that site too. You can compare to other districts.
And maybe to the state, how we're comparing to the state.
So I'm straight on this. We'll wait to hear back from Amber this week on what she feels might be some next steps. Then I should contact Doug Meckel about availability in August maybe, or September for continued vision mission. That would be more board.
I think we need to find a time for that ahead of the. Ahead of the, I guess, from what I'm hearing, not everyone spoke, but I guess ahead of the master planning, we need to, depending on what Aaron says, we need to kind of start
Need
to
to
deal with
hammer.
Amber, I mean, sorry, too many people, keep the vision, mission, and academics, kind of where that all,
Okay.
start those wheels moving, I guess. Doug, I guess we'll see what their schedule is, and we can throw some dates out there to the board.
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I think when you talk to Amber, you should make sure to let her know that we're missing the component where
Yes.
it all began, right?
I've got that.
Okay,
Okay. Took a note. That makes sense to me.
yeah.
It gives you more background on where it all began.
Well, I think it's gonna be important when you talk to the community,
Yeah.
like, why are we even talking about this?
Right. No, that's very doable.
But I think that even that, like within that, you know, having some numbers to back that up too. Cause I think that a lot of that is known, you know, it's just not been part of the explanation.
Yeah.
I don't see the social emotional piece on the discussion topics. Is that
I did,
also
it's
something?
not that it'll, I'm sure it'll come up.
Because that kind of goes.
I agree,
hand in
no,
hand with
I agree.
academic piece.
Yep.
That's part of our goals.
Yeah, that'll be talked about. I know it will be. Appreciate it.
All right, have we addressed the master plan sufficiently? Where we're at there for Lauren, executive session, I don't think there's any I'm aware of, unless the board member has any reason that we need to go to executive session. All right, we'll move on then. Possible announcements for upcoming dates. I mean, we just mentioned this strategic plan, vision, goals session with Doug Meckel, so we'll have Lauren start working on that and move that forward. Any other items we have hanging out there? The next meeting, I mean, it sounds like the August meeting we'll have some stuff on the building, but we don't have a need, doesn't sound like we have a need for any interim meeting. The budget, are we gonna start budget stuff?
The budget?
August, for our August meeting?
Yes, yeah, there'll be, the first round will be in August and it won't get officially approved until September. It's later this year.
Yeah.
Our budget has to, before August 25th. So it'll come. We may not have it ready by the August regular meeting. There may have to be a follow-up budget approval meeting, approval to publish.
Okay.
So it won't be September, it'll be August.
And then you publish it, and then you have to wait however many days, and then it'll probably get approved at the regular board meeting in September. That's the process. Yeah, it takes a little while.
But we know that, we've got the negotiated agreement, which is in staffing being our largest
Right.
expense, and we know our
Right.
bond stuff,
Right.
so it's working through the rest of the funds.
Right.
All right. Anything else? Any other board members, comments, questions? Justin, anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I guess I have one.
Oh, man, you're just so.
I was being quiet tonight. I just say one little thing. So, in the master planning process, and you know, I understand like this survey, the panorama survey was questions to students, and then they gave feedback, but it's more, you know, pointed questions. Like, I think they're more generic questions, right? But then you get guidance from that. But to go back to like the process for master planning, I just think sometimes we forget to ask the students, you know, like even an exit interview, you know, outgoing seniors, like how do you feel about, I don't know. So in the master planning, I feel like there's a component that may or may not be missing where you have a frank conversation with X amount of students from each grade and say, okay, what do you see because they travel to other school districts, you know, when they do their activities and talk to other students. So what do you see that we're missing in the school district? What do you think that we excel on in the school district? You know, what facilities do you feel like, do you know what I'm saying? I mean, we talk a lot, you know, as a board, and, you know, parents are loud, but I just don't know if students ever get their voice heard about that, and they probably know better than anyone, right? So also, as far as like exit interview I was talking about, so the only example I can give is that I had a cousin that went to a small town in Wisconsin, and then he went to Georgetown. So the school district had him come back and said, you know, tell us how you were or were not prepared for college, and you know what, you know, all of that, like just, and I just think it's helpful because then, you know when your students go to college their freshman year or whatever, how, you know, what you can improve on to prepare them for the next level. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's crazy, but I just think sometimes their voices may just not be heard or asked for. Yes or no?
Well,
I want
when we did the
Am I
bond,
crazy or not?
when we did the bond issue, we did have some students involved in,
I see a lot of students.
on the input of that.
Yeah.
As
Had
far
better
as,
furniture, they.
oh, yeah, I mean.
Oh, and
so
the furniture,
They were
yeah.
heavily involved in that
Yeah.
survey.
Well, there's the next piece of the master plan is the public comment,
Right.
or public
And there
discussion
there
or
could be
reveal
some,
or whatever you wanna call it, but I don't know why you couldn't
Academically
invite.
too, like, are they prepared, did they feel, even if it's not college, maybe if it's
Right.
going into whatever workforce they're
Yeah.
headed into, were they prepared to enter that workforce with the proper training on the proper equipment, with all of the knowledge they needed to
we
be
used to
successful?
have those.
Yeah, there's a follow-up. I'm not sure what the high school does, if it's just in certain
Yeah.
areas. There is a
When
follow-up.
I was a principal, we used to have to do those.
Yeah, there's,
I do think that after a year or so, something like that, to where they asked an outside perspective.
I think they were required for a while there, for accreditation.
part of that's shown in the National Student Clearinghouse, but it's
Yeah.
more it's not
Yeah.
like perception, it's
Right.
more of
But-
how many are still in school.
But
and-
Tanya, there's no reason why we can't get some students involved.
Well, I mean, maybe it already does happen and we just don't know about it. I don't know.
I think we've been through the process so far with the bond and where we're at
Yeah.
with the new academic wing, they've been highly involved in a
Good.
lot of different ways.
Yeah,
So I feel pretty good about it.
yeah, that's good. Well, then I like that.
We actually have two students serving as interns with McCown Gordon.
Oh, that's cool.
Let's see them once in a while with their hard hats on in there.
That's cool.
I don't know how they were selected. They interviewed with Ben Killingsworth.
Anything
Kind of-
else?
Sorry, kind of along that line too, like, opportunity, like you're saying you didn't know how they were selected, like, how do these kids find out some of these opportunities that maybe are available to them, and is that widely?
Yeah, I think we're gonna start doing, with the college and career readiness piece, I think we're gonna start doing a better job, Stephanie, I really do. I think those conversations and the expectations are gonna be much better. I'm pretty excited about that process.
Because that's a new position. Yeah.
And I think we have the right person to help lead that.
Good. That's
So
exciting.
so what do you think the top thing, is your, to make a great year, like for that new person, I mean, what's the one thing that you'd love to see him?
He's a college and career person.
Yeah.
I think the communication piece individually with the students who need that help in helping decide their college and careers, giving them ample opportunities to search out what their strengths are. I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen in the past, but I think we're gonna enhance it considerably.
Can I say one last thing, or last one?
Mhm.
That I know in the past it's been sent out like through email, like here's opportunities, but it would be nice if there was a way, when we talked about like the students had a connection with the teacher, that if they were pushed, like some of these kids, they read it, but if they were,
Gone.
yeah, but if they were pushed to do, like if somebody was inspiring them or encouraging them to do something, then I think we'd see a better success of kids participating. But they have to have that little,
I'd also like to
Nudge.
see just some things opened up. And, well, what you said was like, you know, some things are not necessarily open to everybody, you know, whether it be honor students or certain groups. It's like, well, it's not successful because it's not opened up to everybody. And to me, I'd rather have things opened up and available on a broader scale for things like that. Was it, I think?
Robotics.
Robotics is like that.
robotics has been reserved primarily for gifted students when there is a robotics class, but the robotics activity outside, it wasn't really a club yet, but an activity was reserved for students in the gifted program, and it would be nice for kids outside of
Who
the
have that
field.
interest.
Yeah, who have the same interest.
I think other kids have looked into
I'm not
it too.
sure
I mean,
who all.
I know
only
people
have
have
5
asked
minutes.
about it, but
I'm about to adjourn the meeting. Yeah, I'm just kidding. All right, meeting adjourned.
His hand just kept reaching over there. It was like.